Well, I mean, it's a dramatic change, and we are invested to a certain degree, and I mean, we've got piles and piles and piles of statistical analysis, and it'd drive you nuts if you tried to do all. So you really have to, decipher that which or I say decipher. You have to choose that which you can decipher readily and that has meaning for you. I mean, there's so much. I think Scott probably does most of it. I would guess probably owns the company that promotes all that. But I mean, there's just so much stuff that you can't realistically use it all. So you have to pick and choose. And I think that's the key element, is making sure you're utilizing the right stuff. So.
Coach, I was just curious if you could break down the quarterback position at Texas as it stands, and understand Michelle's maybe in a walking boot that he's practicing this week. I'm sure you're preparing for both quarterbacks.
Well, I think you always have to, because they've both been on the field, and and it depends on who you listen to in regards to the capabilities of both of them. And my assessment is just based on what I see on videotape. I think they're both capable. I think there's dialogue that one can maybe run the ball a little bit better than the other, and vice versa in the passing game. But I see both of them. I mean, the numbers haven't been apparently not as good as they would like there, but by the same token, you see some positive things take place in the passing game. I mean, and you see him get a lot of yardage. So one thing I know is that the quarterback gets his hands on the ball. I mean, he is the prominent figure in an awful lot of snaps. I looked, statistically at in the Maryland game. The quarterback either ran or threw the ball 80% or 79% of the time. Against USC, the quarterback either ran or threw the ball 80% of the time, and then went down to 50% this last week. So I mean, he's a prominent figure in their offense, regardless of which one it happens to be.
On your offense, what kind of lift is Isaiah Zuber giving you?
I thought he made some nice plays last week. I think just he's a fine athlete. He's talented. It's a matter of consistency, and when he reaches that level of consistency that we're after, he'll be a very prominent figure.
It seems like Kendall Adams has been a much better prepared player this season. Always seems to be in the right spot, making good breaks in the ball. Has he been a more studious player off the field in your eyes?
Well, I think he's always been somebody that invests himself, and maybe that's accurate assessment, that he's a little bit more committed to it right now. But I think his experience has been beneficial to him, as it should be to most people that really want to make the effort. He's processing. You hear me say it all the time, but he processes information a lot faster. Consequently, gets himself. I mean, he's made plays that really, it was strictly a matter of being in the right place at the right time. And so you have to be able to process information well to get to the right place at the right time, and he's done that, a good portion of the time. So, whether he's studying the game any more than he had in the past, maybe so. I'm not sure.
And with Tanner, as good a game as he played last week, when you rewatched it, is that the best you've seen him play on the defensive line?
Tanner himself, or the entire?
Tanner Wood.
Yeah, Tanner, probably so. Probably a fair assessment. I think, getting up and knocking two passes down was prominent, in the ball game, and that's, he's one of those guys that always, he's trying to do what you ask him to do, and he's always going to do it full speed ahead and go as hard as he can, and works diligently to become better, and I see him getting better and better and better, and it doesn't hurt anything that he's had the experience of, being a more than a part-time player last year.
You guys had a lot of success against schools from Texas last season, and K-State as a whole has had a lot of success against the University of Texas. So I'm just curious, is there an added vibe of energy around the players during the week when you're preparing for a school like Texas, just given the credibility the name of Texas brings?
Well, I don't think it has anything to do whether we've won games or not against them. I think it's it's a conference game, and B, it is. I mean, there is the name Texas, is meaningful in college football and has been for a long time. I think that should help motivate young people. I hope it's that it's not something that you rise to that level and then you fall off. And in other games, we try to make all of them the same, so the level of enthusiasm and spirit is the same for all of them. The best it can be.
Coach, looking at the defense collectively, there may have been some at least outside questions having to replace some top-level people from last year, but have they exceeded your expectations in how well they played collectively so far?
Well, nothing exceeds my expectations, but I think they have. We have done some very good things defensively. We've got some things that we're still working on and still have to get corrected, but I think we're making progress, and I think you can see. We've probably gotten a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better throughout, but still without. Not without our faults. We had two major plays against us last week, which would have made a dynamic difference in the vast amount of improvement, made with our defense, and a big play in the passing game and a big play in the running game, and you don't get them back. It's not like trying to sit around and say, well, if they didn't have those plays, we only give up this, this, and this. It's it happens, so we got to do something about getting that fixed.
Can you assess the play of your offensive line?
I think it's been solid. We have, we haven't been, haven't given up sacks. I mean, we've been pretty good in that area. Probably the thing that maybe probably the biggest concern right now, there's always a concern, but and there's some mechanical things that fundamental things that they do that we're certainly not as good at as we need to be and would like to fix. But I think just the penalty element, and getting penalized more frequently than we need to. And you go back to last week's ball game, in fact, last couple of weeks, and we just had some penalties that were in both ball games that had a dynamic impact on on the ball game itself, and that's still a concern. That's something we're working on diligently.
Well, when I watched Texas play Iowa State, they pretty much defensively took Iowa State out of everything it was attempting to do offensively. How good is this Texas defense?
Well, I think they're awfully good. They do quite a few things, and have got good people doing it. I think they're probably, they're by far, I'd say by far, they're obviously the best defensive football team we'll face up to this point in time. And at the end of the season, you look back and, can determine whether they were the best defensive group that we have seen. But they're up front, they're very physical, they've got good size, they've got good range. You look across the entire defense and, you don't see any 5'4" guys running around in there. These are all 6 foot plus, and, they get 6'7" pass rusher, and, all their secondary, it's kind of stair step. They're 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", across the board, and you don't see that in the back end, a great deal. So they have those physical capabilities and the specifics of the size that they have, but athletic to go along with it, and they've got those linebackers that run around, and Malik has been a guy that everybody's, been high on for a long time, and he hadn't done anything to, to change anybody's opinion, I think, on that. Just, a young guy that does just that. He just runs around, finds places to go, and finds ways to get to the football, and will hit you. But they've got a bunch of guys like that too. So, yeah, they're pretty decent.
Coach, is curious with the wide receivers, have you been able to pick up on their confidence being shaken a little bit by what's happened the last 2 weeks?
They're 19 years old. You don't shake the confidence of a 19-year-old. No, I think they're just, they understand. Here's what I have to do, and so they're, working to do it. I don't think I think they, they're confident that they can. Let me put it that way.
And Dominic Keith was someone that you relied on quite a bit last year. It seems like it's been a quiet start for him. Is that mainly based on just what everybody else has been doing there?
Yeah, that's that's kind of what the system is all about. You don't know who it is that is going to have the most opportunities in any given ball game, and it's up to us to be able to find out, who that is and where it is, and it changes from snap to snap. And when I say us, that includes our quarterback being able to, go through a progression and find the right guys to get the ball to. But nothing other than that has changed the dynamics of who gets the ball the most. Yeah, it's not as though we have one primary receiver, and that's a guy that we're going to try to get the ball to all the time. We don't have that.
Coach, just a simple question. How important would it be to be able to start off the Big 12 season 2-0 and get this win on the road for you guys?
Well, so however you want to measure it, wins are always at the top of the scale. So, if it's from 1 to 10, it's a 10. But it wouldn't make any difference whether it's this game, next game, whatever. That's they're all highly significant, and certainly it's better than the alternative. But it's a big step. Yeah, truly is. It would be significant. Yeah.
When you think about the atmosphere at Texas, what comes to mind the most?
Well, they got a lot of people in the stadium, and I don't know what they're drawing right now. I normally look at that on Wednesdays, but they're going to have a bunch of Texas people there, and but as far as the environment and the atmosphere, et cetera, I've tried to discipline myself to make sure that what I'm paying attention to is, like I've said so many times, between the white lines, and because I've got to set the example for all those guys that are out there on the field, and making sure that we don't get caught up in anything other than playing the game.
Lots of K-Staters in the state of Texas. What's that feeling like maybe after the game when you see all those fans?
Well, I always love seeing Kansas State fans, whether it's Texas or any place else. It's kind of like the Vanderbilt game. To have as many people as we had there was a tribute to our players and a tribute to our fans, and I admire them and appreciate them so very, very much. And we just we've been fortunate to have kind of people that care enough that they're gonna support you, and they're gonna be on the road and travel with you, and so it's always good to see them.
It strikes me, what compelled you to write that very nice note to Kansas State fans and alumni, kind of a letter of apology for Vanderbilt?
Well, I hate for them to be disappointed, and and they're caring fans, so it does disappoint them, when we lose, and it's the way it should be, and or at least I assume it did, and you know, that's just the way I felt. You know, it wasn't anything that I haven't done before. I just, you know, wanted to know that I appreciated, you know, how much I appreciated them being there, and you know, they did all they could, I guess, what I was trying to say, and, you know, we didn't do all we could. I didn't do all I should have done, so that was all.
Coach, this is the second week in a row you face a team with a new coaching staff. Is there enough of a sample size to scout and know what they do, or do you have to maybe go back and look at the previous team from last year too? Or?
Well, I mean, we look at all that. I mean, we've seen all the Houston film for, you know, a period of time, and but you know, you know, what they did in the spring, and then these 4 ball games gives you a pretty good idea. There's still some things that haven't shown up that, you know, that were on the table when they were at Houston, but for the most part, you know, we've seen, you know, a good deal this in the 4 ball games. So, yeah, that's we look at all of it. Yeah, that's what I do.
You noted on Saturday how hard Dalton Reisner works his rehab. So, do you anticipate him being good to go, or is his status a little bit up in the air for this game?
No, he'll be able to go. Yeah.
You can answer this any way you want, hopefully you can answer it. How's Jesse been? How's he doing?
Jesse's doing fine. Yeah, I mean, he handles things, you know, extremely well, and he's, you know, he knows there's some things that, you know, he needs to get better at, and he works at it and is dedicated to it. So, yeah, you don't see much difference in Jesse from game to game, but you know, he understands. I don't have to tell him. He understands what he needs to do and how to go about doing it, and normally does it that way.
Coach, I was going to ask you about Coach Herman, and in particular with their defensive staff. It seems like they're a very talented group and they have a lot of experience. I'm wondering if, without saying a whole lot, are they complex in what they do, or are they just pretty simple with athletes?
No, they do a lot of things, more so than any Texas teams have done before. And they do. I mean, they have the experience. They've got 12 returning starters. Actually, 2 of them aren't starting, or 3 of them aren't starting. But so they do have that experience, and you know, they're you know, what you can appreciate is that they. You know, they had a little bit of difficulty initially, and it's just getting invested in a system and learning a system, and then so you can see them. You know, they've just gotten better week in and week out in regards to what they do. So, and it's getting acclimated to a new system. You know.
I guess I'll ask too, generally speaking, with their receiving core, because of their size, is it more of a challenge when you see them than maybe some of the teams that you've seen up to this point?
Well, I mean, there's always that challenge, and virtually everybody we play normally has, you know, some sizable receivers. You know, and Texas is no exception, and you know, when you get up in that 6'3" range, 6'4", et cetera, and we'll see, you know, as big and bigger, you know, as we go through the season. I mean, that's always a challenge to a certain degree, but the quarterback still has to be pretty accurate about where he puts the ball in order to, you know, you say the ideal thing is just run that guy down there and throw it up, and he out-jumps everybody because he's further off the ground, but the ball's got to be in the right spot to make that happen as well. So.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay, thank you, man.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys.